Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel AWS DevOps Niche 11. In this video, we will see how to create a LAMP stack in AWS using Cloudformation. What is this LAMP stack I am talking about? I will explain as we move ahead in the video. So what is the usual way to provision an infrastructure within the cloud? For example, I want to launch some virtual machines. I want to launch some load balancers, auto-scaling groups, etc. So we typically log into the cloud console and then we launch the resources, right? So if it is AWS, I log into the AWS self-service portal and launch the resources, whatever I want. Similarly for Azure, I log into the Azure self-service portal and provision the resources. Instead of manually provisioning these resources, the better approach would be to codify the entire provisioning process, wherein you define what are all the set of resources that we need to provision within the cloud and maintain that as a code. A code can be in any format. It can be in a JSON file, it can be in a YAML file, etc. And that can be fed to the services like Cloudformation, which will help provisioning the resources as per our definition. So code can be returned to provision, update, and destroy the infrastructure. So now what is this Cloudformation service? So Cloudformation is a IAAC tool from AWS, that is infrastructure as a code. So whatever resources that you want to provision in the cloud, typically AWS, because Cloudformation is a service within AWS. So if you want to provision some set of resources in AWS via the code, you can use this Cloudformation service, and that is the reason it is called as the infrastructure as a code tool from AWS. So this provides an easy way to create and manage collection of AWS resources. It is just not only a single AWS resource. If you want to launch multiple set of resources, it can be maybe two EC2 instances. It can be one load balancer. It can be one auto scaling group. It can be one Lambda function. So like that, if you want to provision a collection of AWS resources, that can be easily achieved through this Cloudformation service. So provision the resources in AWS using Cloudformation by feeding the code via JSON or YAML file. So Cloudformation can accept the code via these two formats. It can be either in a JSON format or it can be in a YAML format. And once you feed this file to the Cloudformation engine, based on our resource definitions, it's going to create the resources within AWS. Right? So that is the reason this tool is called as a infrastructure as a code tool. Now, what are all the various IAC tools, the infrastructure as a code tools that is available in the market? So basically, you can classify this into three categories. We have the configuration management tools, we have server templating tools, and we have the provisioning tools. So what are all the configuration management tools? So tools like Ansible, Puppet, SolStack, they are all the examples of configuration management tools, and their main responsibility is to ensure that the software configuration is up to date on the clients, whatever they manage. Right? So for example, if you take Ansible, Ansible will have multiple clients. It can be a Linux system, it can be a Windows system. Then Ansible will ensure that via the playbooks, the software, whenever it needs to be updated on the client machine, it gets updated via the playbooks, and the software version is consistent and up to date on all the clients it is managing. Right? So similarly, if you take the server templating tools, we have Docker, then we have HashiCorp Packer, then HashiCorp Vagrant. So if at all you want to maintain an image for your server operating system or an image for your application, those images can be created using these tools. So that's why they are server templating tools. You can have your baseline template, a baseline image for your server or for your applications. And next comes the provisioning tools, under which we have the popular tool that is Terraform. Then we have Cloudformation. So Terraform is basically for multi-cloud providers. If at all you want to launch your resources across any cloud provider, it can be a AWS or it can be Azure or a Google Cloud, etc. Then you can use Terraform, which is again, the infrastructure as a code tool, a very popular IAC tool. Then comes Cloudformation, the service which is very much specific to AWS. So if you want to provision some set of resources in AWS, you can go ahead and use the Cloudformation service. I hope now this has given some clarity on the IAC tools, what's their functionality, and what is the role of Cloudformation. Now let us go ahead into the lab and we will see how to create a LAMP stack using Cloudformation. So what is this LAMP stack that I'm talking about? So LAMP stack, L stands for Linux, then A, it's Apache HTTPD, M, it's a MySQL database, right? And P, it is PHP. So this is the LAMP stack that I was referring to. So if at all I want to launch this or provision this LAMP stack, I need a Linux EC2 instance. I need a Apache HTTPD software to be deployed onto the instance. Then I need a MySQL database deployed within the same instance. And I also need a PHP language environment because my application is going to be a PHP application, right? So whatever application that I'm provisioning through this LAMP stack, it is a PHP application. So I want this complete stack to be created via the Cloudformation. So what I will do is I'm going to feed the JSON file that is having that resource definitions, whatever has to be created for the LAMP stack, and I'm going to feed that JSON file to the Cloudformation service, right? So let us see how do we do that. Okay, so I'm in my AWS console and let me search for Cloudformation. So you can see here Cloudformation create and manage resources with templates. So I'm going to launch my LAMP stack in the Oregon region. So I will just say create stack with new resources. And you can basically, create your resources via multiple options. So either you can create the resources via the template with the designer, or if you have your resource configuration file available in S3, then you can upload the configuration file from the S3 bucket or provide the S3 URL. Or if you have the code in your local system, you can directly upload your code using this option, upload a template file. So this is what I'm going to select. So upload a template file, and you can see here, Cloudformation can accept the code via either on the JSON format or the YAML format. So now let me click choose file here, and I'm going to select Cloudformation LAMP stack. And let me just, this is a JSON formatted file. I click next here and I will enter a stack name. Maybe I will say my test LAMP stack, right? And there are some parameters what we need to give during the launch of the stack, right? So for example, the database name, I will go with the default one, my database, and I'm going to give a password for the MySQL database. Then DB user, I'm going to say admin. And the instance type, I'm going to maybe select it as t2.micro. And we need to give a key pair name. Let me select the key pair, what is already existing in the Oregon region. And SSH location, I'm also going to keep this as the default one. Right? So we supplied some parameters during the launch of the stack. So let me click next here. And the stack failure options, roll back all stack resources would be the default option. If at all there is any problems during the launch of your stack, it's going to roll back and it is going to stop the launch of further resources, right? So let me click next. And now we will go ahead and submit to create the LAMP stack. So you can see here it is saying the creation of the stack is in progress. And as I mentioned, what this stack is going to do, it is going to launch a Linux EC2 instance, right? So it is going to launch a Linux EC2 instance, and on that EC2 instance, it is going to install Apache HTTPD. It's going to install the MySQL database. It is also going to install the PHP programming environment along with the PHP index file, right? In order to host the static content. Okay. So now, while this is creating the stack, I will just quickly go through how the code looks like, right? So let me just go through this LAMP stack file. So this is how the file looks like in order to create our LAMP stack. So basically, we have a parameter section. So whatever we define in the parameter section, those are all the parameters that we provided during the launch of the stack. For example, the key name, the database name, right? So we had that default name as my database. Then we also provided the DB username, password, etc. So basically, any parameters that you want to input during the launch of the stack, you will define it under the parameters section. Okay. Then if I scroll down, even for the instance type, we had multiple instance options, right? So I had given all the allowed values here, t1.micro, t2.micro, t2.small, etc. So that during the launch of the stack, we have the option to select the appropriate instance. So that is a parameter section. And the next section within the Cloudformation, you have something called as the mapping section, right? So in the mapping section, what you do is you typically map the certain instance type along with the underlying architecture, right? For example, t1.micro, it's mapped to this PV64, which is the para virtual machine. Similarly, t2.nano, it's mapped to the HVM64, which is the high virtual machine, right? So like that, you do the mappings for each of the resources. Similarly, the AMI mappings comes here. So what are all the possible AMIs that you want to use during the launch of your stack? Because this Cloudformation template can be applied to any region. Okay, so basically you will have the details of the resources across all the regions that is defined as part of the mapping section. Okay, so if I come down here, this is a very critical section within Cloudformation, resources. And this is a mandatory section. Resources section is a mandatory section for your Cloudformation configuration file. Without the resources section, you know, the file, whatever you feed to the Cloudformation engine, it's going to fail. It will not be able to launch the stack because it is going to look for the resources section and what resources you have defined under this section, right? So even, I have seen this question in the AWS certification exam also, which is the mandatory section for the Cloudformation, the configuration file, it will be the resources section. All other sections like parameters, mappings, etc., they are optional, but resources section is a mandatory section for Cloudformation. Okay, so you can see here as part of the resources, we have clearly defined that it has to launch a EC2 instance. Okay, then it has to install the following packages. What are all the packages? MySQL, right? Then we have HTTPD covered here. Apache, this is Apache HTTPD. Then PHP, right? So our LAMP stack is covered here, right? So if you see Linux is here. We are hosting a Linux instance. Here we are hosting the Apache HTTPD, then MySQL, then also the PHP, right? So all those we have clearly defined in our resources section. And we are also defining a static file for the PHP, which under this particular directory, where www.html index.php. Okay. So basically, this file is going to have the static content for our PHP application. And once our stack is ready, we are going to see this particular content in the web page, AWS Cloudformation PHP sample, right? And if I come down, there is one more section called as the outputs. So this output section is automatically going to give us the endpoint, what we need to use in order to access the application directly. You can see it. This is the output section. And here we have the HTTP based endpoint that also will get automatically generated. So this is how the configuration file looks like. And if I go back to my Cloudformation console, you can see here the stack creation is completed. And here you can see the list of events, what has transpired during the creation of the stack. You can see that there is a web server instance it has launched. There are some associated security groups it has launched. Similarly, if I go into the resources, it has launched an EC2 instance. This is our instance ID, and this is a security group associated with the instance. And you can see this output, as I was mentioning, it has automatically generated an endpoint to access our PHP application, right? So now if I just click this link and open it in a new tab, you can see here, our LAMP stack is ready. We are able to access our PHP application directly, whatever we provision through this Cloudformation. Okay. And if I go into the EC2 dashboard, you can also see the instance, whatever the Cloudformation has launched. If I click the instance tab here, you can see. So this is the instance what is launched by the Cloudformation. You can see here security group name, my test LAMP stack. It's a security group which was created through the Cloudformation. So this instance is installed with Apache, MySQL, and also the PHP, which we are able to access it here directly via this endpoint. Now I can even log into this instance. Let me upload the keypad. So this is the Linux instance, what Cloudformation has provisioned. And we will also just try to access the database. So if I say MySQL, you can see here, I'm directly into the database now. So this Cloudformation has provisioned the MySQL database as well on the same machine, right? So next comes the PHP or even the Apache HTTPD. So if I say service HTTPD status, so it is running the Apache's HTTPD service also. Similarly for the PHP, if I go to var www html, and you can see that there is a index.php file also automatically created by the Cloudformation, right? So this is the content what we saw in the website once we hit that endpoint. Okay, so this is how you can launch your application stack using the Cloudformation by just feeding the code in the form of a YAML, or it can be a JSON that can be directly fed to the Cloudformation engine. So how quickly it could able to provision a complete application stack, right? So any application stack you want to create using Cloudformation, just have the code ready for it and just feed the same to the Cloudformation engine. Okay, so I hope this demo on Cloudformation was helpful. So please do share your feedback, comments, and if you need any additional information, you can just let me know. Also, I wanted to mention that I'm also offering courses on AWS and DevOps. So if anyone would be interested to take the training from me, you can send an email to the mentioned email ID, awsdevops1919@gmail.com. I'll be happy to share the details about the course content, the course fee, etc. So this training is going to be an online training via the Zoom, and the class recordings post each and every class will be uploaded onto your Google Drive, and the access will be provided to you. So whether it is AWS or DevOps, it's going to be 5 to 6 weeks of interactive course, and it's completely focused on the hands-on lab exercises. So if you want to really get yourself comfortable with various AWS services, especially with the hands-on labs, you can feel free to send an email to my email ID for the training session. So that's all I had on this video. If you have liked this content, please do share your feedback, comments, and if you feel that this content will be useful to your known circles, please feel free to share this video to your known circles as well. So thank you all, and I will meet you all in my next video.